What if the very thing you've been crying over is the place where God is preparing his greatest miracle? What if heaven has already signed the provision that earth hasn't delivered yet? Today, I want you to silence every voice of fear, every whisper of lack, and every burden that has been stealing your peace. Because this message is not about wishful thinking. It is about rediscovering the confidence that comes from trusting God's unfailing character. There comes a moment in every believer's journey when the bills seem louder than the promises, when the obstacles appear bigger than the opportunities, and when anxiety tries to convince you that you're fighting this battle alone. But hear this with every fiber of your being: the God who created the heavens and the earth has never abandoned those who place their trust in him. He is not surprised by your circumstances, intimidated by your challenges, or limited by the economy of this world. While people measure resources by what they can see, God measures possibilities by his infinite power. The same God who provided for the widow in her emptiness, fed thousands with a small offering, and opened impossible doors throughout Scripture is still faithful today. Your current situation is not the conclusion of your story, it is the stage upon which God's faithfulness can be revealed. So lift your head, strengthen your faith, and prepare your heart. This is the moment to release fear, embrace hope, and remember that when God is your source, peace replaces panic, faith overcomes worry, and every step forward becomes a testimony of his unfailing provision. Your breakthrough begins not when your circumstances change, but when your confidence in God becomes greater than your fear of tomorrow. God is your source, not your salary. One of the greatest battles you will ever face is deciding what you truly depend on. Many people unknowingly place their confidence in a paycheck, a business, a promotion, a bank account, or the approval of others. These things are valuable, but they were never designed to be your ultimate source. They are simply channels through which provision may come. The true source behind every blessing is God. Channels can change, jobs can end, markets can fluctuate, opportunities can disappear, but the one who provides remains the same. When you understand this truth, your heart begins to experience a peace that no financial report can give and no economic downturn can take away. Fear often grows when we focus more on the channel than on the source. We begin to think, if I lose this job, everything is over, or if this opportunity doesn't work out, my future is finished. But God has never been limited to one avenue of blessing. He is infinitely creative. He can open doors no one expected. He can create opportunities where there seem to be none. He can connect you with the right people at the right time. He can provide wisdom that leads to new possibilities. His provision is not confined to human expectations. This does not mean that faith replaces responsibility. Trusting God is never an excuse for laziness or poor stewardship. Rather, faith transforms the way you approach your work. You work diligently because you honor God, not because you believe your employer controls your destiny. You save wisely because wisdom is valuable, not because your security rests entirely in your savings. You plan for the future, but you do not allow planning to become anxiety. You recognize that every ability you possess, every opportunity you receive, and every success you achieve is ultimately a gift entrusted to you by God. There are seasons in life when it feels as though everything is being shaken. Plans fail, doors close, expectations are disappointed. In those moments, it is tempting to believe that God has forgotten you. Yet often those very seasons become opportunities to discover where your confidence truly lies. When familiar supports are removed, you begin to realize that God's faithfulness was never dependent on them. He remains constant, even when everything else changes. Sometimes God allows one chapter to close because he is preparing another that you could not yet imagine. A closed door is not always a sign of rejection. It may be an invitation to trust him more deeply. Looking back, many people discover that what once felt like a devastating loss eventually became the beginning of something far better. At the time, they could not see the purpose. Later, they recognized God's wisdom guiding every step. Worry constantly asks, "What if I don't have enough?" Faith responds, "God has been faithful before, and he will be faithful again." Worry focuses on limitations. Faith focuses on God's character. The circumstances around you may change from day to day, but God's faithfulness remains steady. His wisdom does not fail. His compassion does not run dry. His ability to provide is not diminished by inflation, uncertainty, or human weakness. Living with this perspective changes more than your finances. It changes your heart. Instead of living with constant fear, you begin each day with gratitude. Instead of comparing yourself with others, you appreciate the opportunities God has placed before you. Instead of allowing stress to dominate your thoughts, you seek wisdom, work faithfully, and trust that God is guiding your path even when you cannot see the whole picture. Remember that God's provision is not always immediate, dramatic, or exactly what you expected. Sometimes it comes through the encouragement of a friend, the wisdom to make a better decision, the strength to persevere through difficulty, or an unexpected opportunity that arrives at precisely the right time. His care for you extends beyond money. He provides peace for anxious hearts, hope for discouraged souls, courage for uncertain seasons, and direction when the path ahead seems unclear. So today, make a decision to shift your confidence. Do not place your ultimate hope in temporary things that can disappear overnight. Hold them with gratitude, but not with fear. Let your deepest confidence rest in the God whose faithfulness does not change. Continue to work with excellence, manage your resources wisely, and pursue every opportunity with integrity. Yet through it all, remember this enduring truth. Your future is not defined by your circumstances, but by the steadfast God who walks with you through every season. When He is your source, you can face tomorrow with courage, live today with peace, and move forward with unwavering hope. Faith is far more than positive thinking or blind optimism. It is a settled confidence in the character of God, even when circumstances seem to say otherwise. Anyone can believe when the answers are already visible, but genuine faith is revealed when the path ahead is uncertain. It chooses to trust God's wisdom over human understanding and His promises over temporary appearances. That is why faith has the power to transform not only our perspective, but also the way we live each day. Many people spend their lives waiting for perfect conditions before they move forward. They say, "When everything makes sense, then I will trust God." But faith rarely begins where certainty exists. It begins where certainty ends. It steps forward even when the entire staircase is not visible. It believes that God is already working behind the scenes, arranging opportunities, opening doors, and preparing solutions that cannot yet be seen. While fear magnifies obstacles, faith magnifies the greatness of the one who holds your future. One of the greatest enemies of faith is worry. Worry convinces you that thinking about your problems repeatedly will somehow produce solutions. In reality, worry often drains your energy without changing your circumstances. It steals your peace before tomorrow even arrives. Faith, however, redirects your attention. Instead of constantly asking, "What if everything goes wrong?" Faith asks, "What if God is already making a way that I cannot yet see?" That simple shift changes the atmosphere of your heart. You begin to replace panic with prayer, fear with confidence, and doubt with hope. This does not mean that people of faith never experience uncertainty. Every person faces moments of unanswered questions, delayed expectations, and unexpected challenges. Faith does not deny those realities. Instead, it refuses to let those realities become greater than God's faithfulness. It acknowledges the difficulty while continuing to believe that God remains present, active, and trustworthy through every season. Faith also requires patience. We often want immediate answers, instant breakthroughs, and visible results. Yet some of God's greatest works happen quietly over time. Just as a seed grows beneath the soil long before anyone sees the harvest, God may be preparing blessings in ways that are invisible today. Delays do not always mean denial. Sometimes they are seasons of preparation. During those moments, God develops wisdom, humility, perseverance, and character within us so that we are ready to handle what He places in our hands. Consider how often opportunities appear after periods of waiting. A conversation unexpectedly leads to a new career path. A setback redirects someone toward a purpose they never imagined. A closed door protects them from something that would have harmed their future. Looking back, many people recognize that what once seemed like disappointment became divine direction. At the time, they could not understand it. Later, they realized that God's timing was wiser than their own. Faith is also demonstrated through obedience. Trusting God means acting with integrity, even when shortcuts seem easier. It means working diligently when no one is watching. It means remaining generous when fear tells you to become selfish. It means speaking truthfully, treating others with kindness, and honoring God in everyday decisions. These actions do not earn God's love or guarantee material success, but they reflect a heart that truly trusts Him. Another beautiful characteristic of faith is gratitude. Gratitude recognizes today's blessings while still believing for tomorrow's needs. Instead of focusing only on what is missing, it remembers how God has already sustained you through previous challenges. Every answered prayer, every unexpected opportunity, every lesson learned through hardship becomes evidence of God's continuing faithfulness. Gratitude strengthens faith because it reminds you that the God who helped you yesterday has not changed today. There will always be voices that encourage fear. News headlines may predict uncertainty. People may speak words of discouragement. Circumstances may suggest that hope is unreasonable. But faith chooses a different perspective. It remembers that God's resources are not limited by human limitations. His wisdom is greater than confusion. His peace is stronger than anxiety. His ability to guide your life extends far beyond what your eyes can currently see. Living by faith does not remove every obstacle from your journey. Instead, it changes the way you walk through those obstacles. You stop measuring every situation by your own strength and begin measuring it by God's faithfulness. You discover that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to trust God despite fear. Every step taken in faith becomes a declaration that your confidence rests not in changing circumstances, but in the unchanging character of God. Today, choose faith over fear. Refuse to let worry become the loudest voice in your life. Continue to pray with expectation, work with excellence, serve with humility, and wait with patience. Believe that even when you cannot trace every detail of God's plan, you can trust His heart. Heaven's provision is not unlocked by anxiety, striving, or endless fear. It is experienced by hearts that confidently rest in the God who is always faithful, always present, and always able to provide exactly what is needed at the right time. Stop worrying. God has already made a way. Worry has a way of convincing us that we are carrying burdens we were never meant to bear. It whispers that everything depends on our strength, our wisdom, and our ability to control every outcome. It keeps our minds racing through endless what-if scenarios, imagining problems that may never happen. Before long, we find ourselves exhausted, not because of what we have faced, but because of what we have feared. Yet God continually invites His people to live differently. He calls us to exchange anxiety for trust, fear for faith, and uncertainty for confidence in His unfailing care. One of the most powerful truths you can embrace is this: God is never caught by surprise. The challenge that seems impossible to you is not unexpected to Him. Before you encountered today's obstacle, God already knew it would come. Before you prayed your first prayer about it, He already understood every detail. Before you worried about tomorrow, He was already present there. This truth changes everything. If God sees the end from the beginning, then your future is not hidden from Him. While you are trying to figure out the next step, He already knows the complete path. Too often we mistake delays for abandonment. We assume that because we cannot immediately see the answer, God must not be working. But some of life's greatest miracles develop quietly behind the scenes. Just as roots grow deep beneath the ground before a tree becomes visible, God's work often begins where human eyes cannot see. The silence does not mean His absence. The waiting does not mean His neglect. Sometimes God is arranging circumstances, preparing hearts, opening unseen doors, or protecting you from opportunities that would ultimately harm you rather than help you. There is a difference between waiting with worry and waiting with faith. Waiting with worry is filled with frustration, fear, and constant questioning. Waiting with faith is marked by peace, expectation, and confidence that God is still at work. The outward circumstances may appear identical, but the condition of the heart is completely different. One drains your strength, while the other renews it. This does not mean that you ignore practical responsibilities. God calls us to work diligently, make wise decisions, and prepare responsibly. Faith is never passive. It motivates us to act with wisdom while leaving the results in God's hands. We do everything we can with integrity, but we refuse to believe that everything depends solely on us. We recognize that our efforts matter, but God's guidance is what ultimately directs our path. Sometimes the very obstacle you are asking God to remove is the place where He wants to teach you your greatest lesson. Challenges often develop qualities that comfort never could. Difficult seasons strengthen perseverance. Delays cultivate patience. Uncertainty deepens dependence on God. While we naturally seek immediate relief, God often seeks lasting transformation. He is more concerned with shaping your character than simply changing your circumstances. Think about the times in your own life when something did not happen according to your plans. Perhaps a door closed unexpectedly. Maybe an opportunity disappeared. At the time, it may have felt like failure. Yet looking back, you may now recognize that those disappointments redirected you towards something better. What once appeared to be rejection rejection became protection. What looked like loss became preparation. What felt like an ending became the beginning of a new chapter. God's perspective is always greater than ours. Worry also has a way of stealing today's joy by borrowing tomorrow's troubles. It keeps us so focused on what might happen that we fail to appreciate what God is doing right now. Every day contains reasons for gratitude, strength to continue, wisdom to make decisions, people who encourage us, opportunities to grow, and countless blessings that often go unnoticed. Gratitude does not ignore life's difficulties. Instead, it reminds us that God's goodness is still present even in challenging seasons. When fear begins to speak, answer it with truth. Remind yourself that God's faithfulness has carried you through every previous challenge. There were moments you once thought you would never survive, yet here you are today. There were problems that once seemed impossible, yet solutions eventually appeared. The same God who sustained you then has not changed. His wisdom is still perfect. His love is still constant. His power is still unlimited. Your future is not determined by the size of your obstacles, but by the greatness of the God who walks beside you. He can create opportunities that no person could arrange. He can provide wisdom beyond your own understanding. He can bring peace in the middle of uncertainty and hope in seasons of disappointment. Even when the road ahead is unclear, His guidance remains steady. So today, make the decision to release the burden of worry. You were never created to carry tomorrow before it arrives. Trust God with what you cannot control while faithfully doing what He has placed in your hands today. Walk forward with courage instead of fear, with hope instead of despair, and with confidence instead of anxiety. Remember this enduring truth. God has already gone before you. He is preparing the way, opening doors in His perfect timing, and working for your good in ways you may not yet understand. Your responsibility is not to control every outcome. It is to trust the one who already holds your future securely in His hands. Steward what God places in your hands. One of the greatest misunderstandings about God's provision is the belief that blessings are meant only to be enjoyed rather than faithfully managed. Throughout life, God entrusts every person with resources, time, abilities, relationships, opportunities, finances, and influence. Whether those resources appear small or great, they are valuable because they have been placed in our hands for a purpose. The question is not simply, how much do I have, but rather, how faithfully am I using what God has already entrusted to me? True increase often begins with faithful stewardship of what already exists. Many people spend their lives waiting for more while overlooking the value of what they already possess. They believe that if only they had greater resources, then they would become generous, disciplined, or purposeful. Yet faithfulness is not determined by abundance. It is revealed through daily choices. A person who learns to manage little with wisdom develops habits that prepare them for greater responsibility. On the other hand, someone who continually neglects small responsibilities may struggle even when larger opportunities arrive. Character grows long before visible success appears. Stewardship begins with gratitude. When you recognize that every good gift ultimately comes from God, your perspective changes. Instead of constantly comparing your life to someone else's, you begin appreciating the opportunities already before you. Gratitude transforms ordinary moments into reminders of God's faithfulness. It shifts your attention away from what you lack and toward the countless ways God continues to provide. A grateful heart is not blind to challenges, but it refuses to allow those challenges to overshadow God's ongoing goodness. Wise stewardship also requires discipline. In a culture that often encourages immediate gratification, discipline teaches patience and intentionality. It means making thoughtful decisions instead of emotional ones. It means avoiding waste, planning carefully, and using resources in ways that reflect wisdom rather than impulse. Whether managing finances, time, or personal talents, discipline helps create stability during uncertain seasons. It is not about living in fear of tomorrow, but about honoring God through responsible choices today. Another important aspect of stewardship is recognizing the value of work. Honest work is not merely a way to earn income. It is an opportunity to reflect excellence, integrity, and faithfulness. Whatever task has been placed before you, approach it with dedication. Small assignments often prepare us for greater responsibilities. Every act of excellence builds character, strengthens trust, and creates opportunities for future growth. Even when your efforts seem unnoticed by others, remember that faithfulness is never wasted in God's eyes. Generosity is another powerful expression of wise stewardship. Many people assume generosity is reserved for those who possess great wealth, but generosity begins with the heart rather than the size of one's resources. A generous spirit willingly shares encouragement, kindness, time, wisdom, and practical help whenever possible. Financial generosity also reflects trust, reminding us that our security is found in God rather than in possessions alone. human. When we hold our blessings with open hands, we acknowledge that everything ultimately belongs to Him. Stewardship also applies to the gifts and abilities God has given each person. Every individual has unique talents, experiences, and opportunities to make a positive difference. Some are gifted in leadership, others in teaching, serving, creating, encouraging, or solving problems. These abilities are not meant to remain hidden. They are opportunities to bless others and bring glory to God. Neglecting your gifts out of fear or comparison prevents others from benefiting from what only you can contribute. There will be seasons when resources seem limited and progress feels slow. During those moments, it is easy to become discouraged or believe that your efforts do not matter. Yet many significant accomplishments begin with consistent faithfulness in ordinary circumstances. Great achievements are often the result of countless small acts of obedience, discipline, and perseverance. Never underestimate what God can accomplish through a person who remains faithful day after day. At times, God may allow delays not because He is withholding blessings, but because He is preparing your character to sustain them. Success without wisdom can become a burden rather than a blessing. Greater opportunities require greater responsibility. By teaching patience, humility, and discipline first, God equips you to handle future blessings with maturity rather than pride. His preparation is an expression of His care, ensuring that what He places in your hands will become a lasting blessing rather than a temporary achievement. Remember that stewardship is ultimately an act of worship. Every wise decision, every honest day's work, every generous act, and every faithful use of your gifts becomes an expression of gratitude toward God. You honor Him not only through words, but through the way you live. As you faithfully manage what He has already entrusted to you, you position yourself to experience deeper purpose, greater peace, and increased opportunities to serve others. Today, choose to become a faithful steward of every blessing God has placed in your life. Appreciate what you have instead of constantly longing for what you do not. Work with excellence, give with generosity, plan with wisdom, and serve with humility. Trust that God sees every faithful decision, even when others do not. In His perfect timing, He is able to multiply your efforts, open new doors, and expand your influence for His glory. When you honor Him with what is already in your hands, you demonstrate a heart prepared to receive whatever He chooses to entrust to you next. Your season of overflow has begun. Every person reaches moments when it feels as though life has been defined by waiting. Waiting for answers, waiting for opportunities, waiting for doors to open, waiting for prayers to be answered. During those seasons, it is easy to believe that nothing is changing. Yet some of God's greatest works take place beneath the surface, long before they become visible. Just as dawn quietly replaces the darkness before the sun fully rises, God often prepares seasons of blessing in ways that cannot immediately be seen. His timing is never hurried, and it is never late. He works with perfect wisdom, shaping not only your circumstances, but also your heart. Overflow is often misunderstood. Many people define it only as financial abundance or material success. While God's provision certainly includes meeting practical needs, true overflow reaches much deeper. It is an abundance of peace when others are overwhelmed by anxiety. It is joy that remains steady even during difficult seasons. It is wisdom that guides important decisions. It is strength when your own energy seems exhausted. It is hope that refuses to surrender when circumstances appear uncertain. These are treasures that no economy can produce, and no hardship can permanently remove. When God begins a new season in your life, He frequently starts by changing your perspective before changing your circumstances. Instead of seeing only limitations, you begin noticing possibilities. Instead of focusing on closed doors, you begin recognizing new opportunities. Instead of allowing fear to shape your decisions, you are guided by faith and wisdom. This inner transformation becomes the foundation upon which lasting external change is built. One of the greatest barriers to experiencing overflow is carrying the weight of yesterday into today. Disappointments, failures, betrayals, and missed opportunities can convince you that your future will always resemble your past. But God continually invites His people to move forward. Every new day carries fresh opportunities to grow, to learn, and to trust Him more deeply. Your past may explain part of your journey, but it does not have to determine your destination. God's grace allows you to begin again with renewed hope and renewed purpose. Overflow also requires an open heart. Sometimes we become so focused on one specific answer that we overlook the unexpected ways God is already working. We ask Him to solve problems according to our plans, while He is preparing something even better according to His wisdom. Remaining open to His direction allows us to recognize blessings that might otherwise go unnoticed. The opportunities that change your life may not always arrive in the package you expected, but they often reveal God's goodness in remarkable ways. As you enter new seasons, remember that blessings carry responsibility. Overflow is not given merely for personal comfort, but also to become a source of encouragement and generosity toward others. When God strengthens you, you can strengthen someone else. When He comforts you, you can offer comfort to those who are struggling. When He provides for your needs, you gain opportunities to bless others with compassion and kindness. True abundance is never meant to stop with us. It is designed to flow through us. There will still be challenges along the journey. A season of overflow does not mean a life without difficulties. It means living with the confidence that God remains faithful, regardless of circumstances. Storms may come, but they no longer define your identity. Delays may occur, but they do not destroy your hope. Obstacles may appear, but they cannot cancel God's purpose for your life. When your confidence rests in Him, temporary setbacks lose their power to steal your peace. Never underestimate the importance of perseverance. Many people abandon hope just before they would have seen the breakthrough they had been praying for. Growth often happens gradually. Progress may seem slow, but every faithful step matters. Continue working with excellence. Continue making wise decisions. Continue treating people with integrity and kindness. Continue praying with expectation. Continue trusting God even when the results are not immediately visible. Faithfulness over time often produces results that sudden effort never could. Celebrate every victory, no matter how small it may seem. Every answered prayer, every lesson learned, every new opportunity, and every moment of peace is evidence of God's continuing presence in your life. Gratitude keeps your heart focused on His goodness rather than on your fears. It reminds you that the same God who has carried you through previous seasons will continue leading you into the future. As you look ahead, choose to release every fear that tells you you are forgotten, overlooked, or destined to remain where you are. Those voices do not speak the final word over your life. God's faithfulness is greater than your uncertainty. His wisdom is greater than your confusion. His provision is greater than your limitations. His love remains constant through every season. So lift your eyes with confidence and walk into the future with renewed expectation. Continue trusting God when the path seems unclear. Continue serving Him with faithfulness. And continue believing that His plans for your life are filled with hope and purpose. The season ahead is not defined by fear, scarcity, or defeat. It is defined by the steady faithfulness of God. As you remain rooted in Him, you will discover an overflow of peace, wisdom, strength, purpose, and joy that no circumstance can take away. When your life is anchored in God's presence, every new day becomes another opportunity to witness His goodness, reflect His love, and live with unwavering confidence that He is leading you toward a future filled with hope.